virtual. I apologize. I'll start again. Good evening. Welcome to tonight's virtual public meeting. I'm Melanie Richardson. I'm Valley Water's Assistant CEO. And on behalf of all of us here at Valley Water tonight, I want to welcome you here and hope that you're well and safe in the light of all the recent fires and the continued challenge with the COVID-19 pandemic. We are connecting with you tonight to address the soil work, also known as geotechnical investigations, that are occurring at Anderson Dam and that should be beginning very soon and planned through the end of October this year. The lowering of water levels at Anderson Reservoir will be beginning, I apologize, beginning October 1st, and that is in response to a directive from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, also known as FERC, that will ultimately lead to a safer and more reliable Anderson Dam that's strong enough to withstand major earthquakes. Tonight, you will also hear from our elected Valley Water board member, John Varela, as well as the project team on the soil work and potential impacts to the Holiday Lakes estates. At the end of the presentation, we will be more than happy to answer any of your questions and address your concerns. Before we go any further, however, I'd like to introduce Albert Lee from Valley Water's Office of Communications. He will just provide some helpful information on how to access the tools for this virtual Zoom meeting and how to ask questions following the project presentation. Albert?
Thank you, Melanie. I'm going to share my screen here. I know some of us may be comfortable with Zoom, but just to be sure, we want to review some of these features. So we are using Zoom webinars, so most of you are able to hear us, but not necessarily turn on your cameras or turn on your mic just yet. Just as a quick note, make sure you are connected via computer audio. If your internet is unstable or if you're having issues, you can call this number here, and then also use your webinar ID. This will give you a phone feed. For those who are joining us, we have about 40 people in attendance for now. We thank you for joining us. Now, if you will, as we move along today's presentation, you will also have an opportunity to ask a question. You can do that through several ways. One way is through the Q&A portal, is at the bottom screen bar of your window. We recommend putting into the Q&A because this will help us keep track of questions. We don't recommend putting your questions into the chat box, actually. It will get buried pretty quickly. And so for us to keep track of your questions much easier, please use the Q&A portal. If you're more comfortable asking your question verbally, please use the raise hand feature on your screen as well. This will put a hand icon next to your name on our side. We will call out your name and I will enable your microphone. From there, you are able to unmute yourself and verbally ask your question. If you are joining us via phone and want to do the same thing, you can press *9 to raise your hand and then press *6 to unmute yourself. That's it from my end. Melanie, back to you. You want to mute, Melanie?
I apologize. Thank you very much, Albert. We appreciate all of those tips on Zoom. And now I'd like to introduce Director John Varela, who represents this community as part of District 1 on the Valley Water Board of Directors. Director Varela was appointed to the board in 2015 and re-elected in 2018. He has deep ties to Morgan Hill, having served as a city council member and mayor. Welcome, Director Varela.
Thank you, Melanie. And good evening, everyone. It is my pleasure to be here with you tonight. First and most important, my thoughts are with all of you who had to endure some tense moments these last couple of weeks due to the recent wildfires, especially those of you who had to leave your homes by evacuation. So the worst is behind us. So welcome to those of you here tonight. As you know, we had planned this meeting August 28th, given the more pressing items that were upon us at that particular time. It was apparent that it was not going to be feasible to host that meeting then, so here we are tonight. I'm glad that we were able to come before you tonight to talk about our geotechnical work. I'd like to also welcome, I think one of our local city council members from Morgan Hill is in the meeting tonight, Mayor Pro Tem Yvonne Martinez Beltran. Council member, welcome if you're with us tonight. This evening, our team is going to get into some details about the geotechnical investigations, which helps us design projects such as Anderson Dam project. You may notice our crew taking some sample soils in your neighborhood. You may be impacted by some of these, by the increased traffic or some noise. I want to make sure that we pay close attention to the needs of our neighbors that would experience some of the impacts of this testing. We will address your questions tonight, but also encourage you to join us virtually on our next Zoom meeting, September 17th at 6 p.m. On that night, Valley Water will hold a meeting for the greater community about the Anderson Dam Seismic Retrofit project, the whole banana. You can find login information on our project and page, and we will also provide that information on next door and in a letter from me via mail. Thank you again for joining us from your homes. Melanie.
Thank you very much, Director Varela. I now like to turn things over to Chris Hakes, our Deputy Operating Officer in the Dam Safety Division, and his staff to present information about our current work. This presentation and all meeting materials, including the agenda and questions and answers since our last virtual meeting, can be found under the document tab on the project webpage at www.valleywater.org Anderson Dam Project. And I believe Albert or someone will post that in the chat so that you can all see that. After our presentation, we will answer questions that we've received from the community prior to this meeting, in addition to responding to questions we hear tonight. With that, I'll turn it over to Chris Hakes.
Thank you, Melanie, and thank you, Director Varela. Thank you also, everyone, for attending this meeting. We appreciate you spending some time with us tonight to get more information about the project. I'm going to share my screen to put a PowerPoint presentation on. In order to save some bandwidth, I'm going to turn my video off, and then I'll come back. So hopefully this will work. Let me know if it doesn't. Okay, so the Anderson Dam Seismic Retrofit Project update. I'll give you a little information about the Seismic Retrofit Project as originally envisioned. Anderson Dam is our largest dam at about 90,000 acre-feet. That is large enough to hold the other 9 dams and reservoirs that we have inside of its footprint. In 2012, following our seismic analysis, we determined that the embankment of the dam does need to be retrofitted to get up to seismic standards. And that was the process we were proceeding on until earlier this year, February 20th, 2020, when the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, also known as FERC, who is our federal regulator in charge of the dam because there's a hydro facility at its base to generate power, issued an order to us to undertake certain measures before the start of the project to help with the risk to the downstream community. So here's a picture of the existing dam. The upper left shows the existing spillway, kind of in that lighter color. You can see the dam crest, which is basically just the roadway over the top of the dam. The dam embankment is the earthen dam, so just the dirt that makes up the dam. And then we have an outlet pipe, a rather small outlet pipe that runs down through the middle of the embankment. When we originally envisioned the project, these are what we actually saw doing it. Basically, we're going to remove all of the liquefiable material. Initially, we were just going to place more material on the downstream side, but after initial geotechnical explorations in 2016, in 2017, we determined that we had to actually remove the majority of the embankment, just leaving the clay core, and then reinstall suitable materials. The spillway replacement is somewhat of a new element as well. That also came about in 2017 after Orville. Originally, we were just going to patch and repair the existing spillway, but after the Orville incident, the Department of Safety of Dams decided that the criteria for spillways needed to be revised completely. And as a result of that revision, we will be replacing our spillway in its entirety. We'll be installing a low-level outlet pipe. That's to replace the outlet that's currently existing that runs under the center of the dam. And that's actually what we'll be talking about tonight, because that is one component of the FERC Ordered Compliance Project, or FOCP. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. For the global project, there will be a temporary water diversion system to help drain the reservoir. And then we'll have a high level outlet pipe. That is a new criteria instituted by the Department of Safety of Dams in order for us to drain about 30% of the capacity of the reservoir in 7 days if required in an emergency situation. Most times that's an earthquake, but any emergency situation, it could be triggered to use the high level outlet pipe. This is what happened on February 20th of this year. The dam crest is at elevation 647. We have always kept it under restriction of 592 since 2012. That's about 58% of the capacity, around 50,000 acre feet. On February 20th, we got an order to lower the reservoir restriction to elevation 565, which is about, I think, 35% or thereabouts. We were already under that level because of our winter operations, the way we typically do. And we were down at, I believe, around 550, 552. So that was not a problem. We were also supposed to take all the measures necessary to drain it down to elevation 488. That's about 3% of capacity. It's also referred to as dead pool. And that's the lowest level that you can drain the reservoir to using the existing infrastructure, the existing pipes that are in place. That is supposed to begin on October 1st. That's why we're out here talking to you in advance of that. And then we were also supposed to develop a plan to help maintain dead pool because of our outlet is so small that basically FERC wants to know how we intend to keep this water drained as effectively as possible. The key component of this to make it all work and to gain more control of the reservoir is to expedite design and construction of our new low-level outlet tunnel. So that's the new diversion structure you see in outlet tunnel that's on the page in front of you. And then we were supposed to secure the permits and move along the larger seismic retrofit project. This is a photo of our last time the reservoir was actually officially dewatered. That was 1987. The dewatering this time will not look like this. In this situation, it was completely drained so that we could put in a new outlet system. This basically will not happen under this initial phase of dewatering. We will still have about 3% or 2,300 acre feet in there, or maybe a little bit more. So you will see water in the reservoir. However, in 87, when they did drain it, this is what we're trying to prevent. We are going to draw down in a very slow fashion. So the equalizing of the pore pressure won't lead to a landslide, which is the rim instability that we're talking about. These are from 87, we've learned from them. And we have a new plan in place to make sure stuff like this doesn't occur this time around. So what we're really interested in right now is starting hopefully next week, we'll be out in your area doing some geotechnical investigations. That means we'll be digging samples and analyzing them to see how much movement we can expect and what needs to be done to prevent that. These are the locations that we'll be boring it next week. Just some history around the boat marina in 86, 87, 88, when we drew it down last time, there was about 2 feet of movement. There's actually another slide which I didn't bother to include, which shows kind of a picture of that, but it had a whole bunch of mumbo jumbo on it. So I'll show you the next slide, which is Hudao Way, where in 86, they had 6+ feet of movement. So over 6 feet of movement. So this is what that looks like. Basically, that hand-drawn figure on there shows that area that's within the black circle, semicircle, has the ability to move, right? And that obviously, if it was enough movement of 6 feet, it could impact the homes, which is why we are taking on visual inspections and condition assessments. So right now we've gone out, I believe, to the majority of the homes that are in the affected area, and we've done baseline inspections. We basically have looked for evidence of seepage, wet spots, cracks, bulging, any sort of issues. We performed the assessments starting in July, and the report should be ready about mid-September, maybe the later half of September, September 18th, 19th, 20th, somewhere around there. We will also be installing reflectors while we're doing our geotechnical explorations, and that will allow us to visually track any movement to ensure that there is no movement or any movement is minimized. Throughout this whole initial section and drawdown, we will be conducting a variety of inspections. As I said, we did our original condition assessment. We'll be doing visual inspections twice a week during drawdown. We'll do land surveys every other week, and then basically drone surveys by by LiDAR as well. And then we will be installing instrumentation that will upload data to the cloud that can be downloaded basically instantaneously. So the thought is we'll be checking on a regular frequency to make sure there is no movement or minimal movement. Some of the equipment you'll see starting next week, basically in the upper left-hand corner, you see a drill rig. That is how they will be doing their geotechnical explorations. In the bottom right-hand corner, that rig is somewhat similar. It's basically drilling on a slope. You can install a piezometer as well. On the upper right-hand, you've got a bulldozer, and on the lower left-hand corner, you've got a roller compactor. So with those types of machines, what kind of impacts will you see? Basically, you'll see heavy construction equipment, people, drill rigs, support trucks, bulldozers. You'll hear that backup beep. That'll be the most evident sign that work is going on. You'll hear the rumble of engines. You'll hear the backup beep, 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 beep. Depending on how close you are, if you let us know that the beeps are somewhat bothersome, we can try to get a different sound. On other sites, I've heard a duck quack, but you'd be surprised. The beep and the quack both get irritating if you hear them enough. So besides the noise, you know, it'll probably be Monday through Friday during the daytime. There may be occasional Saturday work. Usually there'll be a notice to the public before that happens, and there'll be dust. Obviously working around in the area, it does kick up a little bit of dust. The contractor will be required to control that on site with some watering activities, but sometimes that's still a nuisance that you will encounter. So we are taking a two-phased approach. A first phase is monitoring as we draw down very slowly. We'll, you know, if there are any issues, we'll make minor repairs to the roadway. We'll collect our geotechnical data this year. And then next summer, after the reservoir has been drawn down, if it turns out there are stabilization measures that are necessary, we will put that engineered mitigation in. And that basically concludes my report. I will stop my screen share and turn my camera back on, and then the floor will be open for questions. Okay, let me pull up the Q&A. I see that we do have 10 questions. Does not look like anyone has their hand raised. So we'll go ahead and start with the, excuse me, with the questions that have come in through our Q&A. The first question is from Harris Hall. What is the current retrofit MCE and the expected fault horizon range? E.g., is it a 1 in 100 or a 1 in 5,000 year event? Did this change from the original design 7 years ago? So the current MCE is about a 7.2 magnitude earthquake, I believe, on the Coyote Creek Fault. The reoccurrence interval, I cannot recall exactly. I thought it was somewhere in the order of 1 in 2,500 years, but I will double check with staff, and we will post the actual answer on the website, unless Yogesh, who's also on this call and is a design team member, wants to ping me with an answer before we're done here. We have a question from Paula A. Remnitson. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, by the way. Remnitson, there are substantial questions. Our increased risk for fire is far greater than earthquake. What is the mitigation plan for the water used for fire abatement, which was significant during the very close fire on July 3rd? Because the reservoir won't be drained all the way, we will still have 2,300 acre feet, which is available for fire drops. The 2,300 or 3,000 acre feet, it may go as high as 3,000, is actually bigger than a lot of the reservoirs we have in county. Plus, just up the road from Anderson is our Coyote Reservoir, which can be drawn upon for fire prevention as well. So the reservoir will not be totally empty. It will have water for fire protection. Still not seeing any hands, so we'll continue to go through the Q&A. Mark Stevenson. Why are the trails in Rosden Park area being closed? These beautiful trails are very important to many of us and provide much needed relief from stress of these difficult times. Closing these beautiful trails that we have walked daily for years is tragic and saddening. So Rosden Park is actually controlled by county parks. Last public meeting that we were in, I believe that they said their intent was to keep them open. They have posted some signs recently with the basically recreational activities in the area of the Anderson Dam being ceased. The thought is that any activity in the immediate vicinity of the work area or the drawn down reservoir may be a risk for injury, which is why those activities have been closed. But if the park in question is far enough away, the county may choose to allow recreational activities up there. We can definitely pass along that concern to the county when we see them, and I believe that should be tomorrow. We do have one person's hand raised. Albert, do you want to put Mr. Mulligan into the queue to talk?
Sure. Mr. Mulligan, your mic is not enabled. Please unmute yourself.
Okay, I think I'm there now. Am I there now?
You are.
Okay, so I sent you guys some questions about the AR. I saw that you did an initial study in 2013, and I was not able to find any draft EIRs or EIRs after that. I assume that there aren't, because you just kept having these adverse discoveries, which kind of delayed the EIRs. And then I saw on the state clearinghouse that you have an exemption for doing an EIR for the drawdown work because the federal government's basically requiring it. Are there any EIRs that were done?
Currently, the draft EIR is still in process. We expect that will be released after the tunnel project has started and before the overall seismic retrofit commences. It's tough to say what the schedule is for that. I'm thinking it's probably the draft document will be released in 2021, maybe late 21, early 22. The draft document will be out for comment for a certain period of time. We'll get those comments, produce responses, and then put a final EIR out after that time. As you mentioned, the Anderson Dam Tunnel Project, which is an aspect of the FOCP, the FERC Ordered Compliance Project, was done under an emergency and is under exemption, so there is no EIR for that portion of the project. Okay, looks like the hands are clear for now, so back to our Q&A. Wayne Perrier. Hello, I am a HLE homeowner. I am very concerned about home foundation issues in our neighborhood as a result of soil subsidence during draining. That is why we are putting in our monitoring equipment, is to find out if there is any potential for soil movement, not just subsidence, but lateral movement. So that is why we have come out and done some pre-drawdown inspections, and we'll be continually inspecting and monitoring the area during drawdown. Let's see. Next question from Paula A. Remison. Where can we see the actual FERC order? It was posted to FERC's e-library. The date of the order was February 2020, or excuse me, February 20th, 2020. I'm not sure if it is also posted on the district website. If it is, we will include a link with the transcript or the summary of this meeting, but it is definitely on FERC's website. Wayne again. Is there a plan in place to compensate homeowners whose homes may become damaged as a result of the project? If there is a plan, please explain it. If there's not a plan, why not? The district does have, or excuse me, Valley Water does have a claims process. If you feel that there is damage created by the project as a result of Valley Water action, you are free to submit a claim, and we will review and go through the process with you. So there is a process in place. Paula again. How can we adjust the timeline, RE, water drainage due to the vastly increased fire danger facing us now? If it turns out that there is a additional public safety risk proposed, or excuse me, by the proposed drawdown, it will be up to FERC to alter the order in place to allow us a slower drawdown or perhaps a larger level of water in the reservoir. In order to make that happen, you'd have to convince the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission that outweighed the earthquake risk. So that is a discussion that we have had with them previously in terms of risk to the community versus water supply, environmental benefit, and everything else. So far they have been unmoved, but if you are interested in pursuing that, I would suggest that you do contact the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. Let's see, Paula again. How does draining slowly prevent the damage in the 1980s? It says, is the provable? I think it basically is that provable. So in the 80s, the way our outlet configuration was, I believe it was drained as rapidly as possible. What we've done is done an analysis of the soil pressures that are in the existing landslides. If we drain slowly, the pore pressure in the soil has time to equalize rather than a vast movement from one high pressure to a low pressure state, and that will keep the soil in place. So that is it provable? There is science behind it. I'm not sure what the best way to get you that information would be. There is a report available, I'm sure. I'm not sure if it is on our website, but if it is, we will provide a link to it. Paula again, What recourse do homeowners have if the landslides happen again? I think I covered this. There is a claims process that Valley Water has. You can contact us and we will give you the forms to fill out and walk you through the process. Our risk manager is actually online here as well. So if there are any specific questions, he will be able to answer them, hopefully. We do have 2 hands raised, so we're going to pop over there. Albert, do you want to let Mr. Mulligan back on?
Sure, I will enable Mr. Mulligan's microphone. Mr. Mulligan, you're free to unmute yourself.
Okay, so regarding the fire stuff, you did the initial study in 2013. In 2016, 2018 is when the actual planning work was done for Holiday Lake Estates and Jackson Oaks regarding fire-related risks. And as you know, we've had 3 fires in the last 60 days on the east side of the lake. Some of the risk, a significant amount, is associated with the surface area of the lake in that it extinguishes burning embers that fall there, versus if the lake is, to the extent it's dewatered, the burning embers aren't going to go out and they have the potential to blow into Holiday Lake Estates and Jackson Oaks. Another major issue is the growth of combustible vegetation in the dewatered basin, which is already happening. So basically, I mean, the worst case is you'd replace 1,285 acre feet or acres of water with 1,285 acres of combustible vegetation. So those are the kinds of things that we're looking for mitigation on. They're definite fire risks, and both of the reports from FireWise, which I sent to Kurt Luneberger and Attorney Mercado, actually bring that issue up to various levels of detail. So what is the entity that actually does the fire permit and imposes the mitigation measures?
So as part of the EIR process, stakeholders are able to comment on that. So there are several entities. The county would probably be the entity involved that would comment on the fire danger. They are a contributing entity to the EIR. Currently, for the drawdown, there is less fire danger than may be encountered when the full seismic retrofit project moves forward, because under that situation, the reservoir will be fully drained. Even when the reservoir is drained this year, the surface will be muddy and somewhat wet until summer progresses and it dries out. And that is assuming we have a dry year. In the event that we do have winter rains or heavy rains, drawdown of the reservoir will be extended because our outlet is not large enough to transmit all of the flow that comes in naturally into the reservoir. So short answer, in the interim period while we are constructing the tunnel, the fire danger hopefully will not be increased because we will still have water and mud present that will extinguish those embers and act as a water source for water drops. In the long term, when the seismic retrofit project does come about, we will be analyzing the impacts and potential fire dangers and will mitigate as appropriate. I believe we do have another hand raised. Diana Guido? Diana? Sorry about that.
All right, Diana, your microphone is enabled. Please unmute yourself.
Hi, I'm Diana Guido. And last time we did the drawdown and fixed the dam, we did have an emergency where someone got out there, a young child got stuck in the mud. And I'd hate to see that happen again. I went down there a few days ago and the mud was up to about my thigh and very hard to get out of. So I'm just hoping that, you know, we're going to have the trails closed. Nobody's supposed to be going down there, but that will happen. And I'm just wondering how we're going to protect wildlife and human life from experiencing any danger with the thick mud.
So the drawdown operation that we currently do is somewhat typical to the conditions that we may incur during normal water usage. However, when we start construction of the actual outlet itself, the contractor will be responsible for securing the site. So that usually means site fencing. It's under their purview how they choose to do that. Sometimes they do have security guards in place or roving patrols. It's purely within their purview. So I expect that we will see additional security precautions put in place once construction actually starts. Okay, we'll pop back to the Q&A. Paula, what will you do if visual inspections you see movement, damage, or issues? So depending on the nature of the movement, it will then dictate the response that we will do. If we see a large amount of movement, we will contact FERC and we will stop drawdown while we assess what the best way to proceed is. Obviously, we do not want to take any action that will create a hazardous situation. If there is minor movement or other issues like that, this, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but there is a claims process for which the district can analyze the claim and take appropriate action if found to be caused by the drawdown or basically Valley Water actions. Let's see. Charlie, do you anticipate impact on Manzanita Drive? If there is home damage, will you cover costs? I will have to defer. I know Yogesh is on this call. I believe, at least through this initial drawdown, there is no impact anticipated on Manzanita Drive, but if he could confirm that, that would probably be ideal. Let me see. I'm looking to see if he chatted me.
Not anticipating movement on Manzanita.
There you go. So Yogesh came in and confirmed no impact on Manzanita. Thank you, Yogesh. Frank and Abon, I'm sure I butchered that, I'm sorry. What is the current percent water level? I'm gonna kick that over to Aaron Baker, our Deputy of Raw Water Operations, and see if he knows how full the reservoir currently is.
Hello, thank you, Chris. The reservoir is currently approximately 20% full, or actually, technically, it's 19.9% full right now.
That is an engineer's answer right there, because approximately wasn't good enough. He had to give you the 19.9%. Okay. Tamara Austin, what is the expected time frame that the lake will be drawn down to 3%? Aaron, since you're on, do you want to tell her how quickly that may happen?
All right. Well, without getting too technical here, we have we have a net drawdown of approximately 200 acre-feet a day. Assuming limited or no significant amounts of rainfall, the reservoir could be down to 3% by kind of the end of the year. If we get a significant amount of rainfall or significant inflow, it'll take us a little while to drain the reservoir, and it could be several months, almost as late as May, depending on the hydrology of the given year. So as early as the end of the year, if there's not much rainfall, and then it probably as late as in the May timeframe if there is significant rainfall.
The next question is actually related. It's Gary Bailey, and he says, what is the current acre-feet content of the lake? You said 19.9%. Can you translate that to an acre-foot for us?
I can defer to, well, it's about 100,000. It's Bassam. Can you chime in for me real quick on the?
About 18,000 acre-feet, right?
Yes, good evening. Now, currently, the storage is 17,800 acre-feet.
I was close.
All right.
And then how long will the drawdown take? I believe Aaron just answered that one. So we'll leave that one alone. Let's pivot over back to the panels, or the hand-raised individuals. Mr. Mulligan.
Go ahead and unmute yourself, Mr. Mulligan.
Okay, sorry about that. Back to the 2013 initial study and the fire aspects of it. You did the middle checkbox, which was, I think, less than significant impact. The draft EIR that you're working on right now, is that still based on that 2013 initial study, given that the project has changed so radically in the cumulative version of it?
So the draft EIR will be based on the actual project that's being undertaken. So it will be different from the 2013 study. In addition, I believe they have updated the regulations for what needs to be constituted as an impact in the EIR. So I would expect that it's been a long enough period of time that the EIR will need to be substantially redone. How about Paula, hand raised?
Paula, I am going to unmute you or enable your microphone. Real quickly here. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi. A couple of questions. One is, in terms of the new EIR and the new situation, I mean, obviously our fire dangers, I mean, look at our sky tonight. We're in a completely different situation than we were in 2013. It sounds like you're suggesting that the only comment or recourse that we have about either changing the timeline for this project, or at least changing the draining timeline, is to appeal to FERC. And if that's true, do you have a specific process or a person that we should contact? And my second question is about risk assessment and whether or not the claims process that you were discussing and talking about would affect a person's homeowner's insurance. I'm anticipating if there were any damage, a homeowner's claim might be rejected because there's this project going on and there's a claims process involved in that.
Let me handle the FERC question. I don't have a specific contact. I mean, I do have a contact, but I take it if you sent a letter to him, he would not respond to you. He's basically the head of dam safety out of DC. You know, we can endeavor to get a better contact for you and post it to our website. You know, I am reticent to do this, but the best way to get to a federal contact is also to go through your representative, basically your federal representative. So if you contact your congressperson, they can also make that plea on your behalf. That's definitely an option as well. In order to talk about our claims process, I'm going to kick it over to David Cahan, our risk manager for Valley Water, and he can comment on that.
Thanks, Chris. My name is David Cahan. I'm the risk manager for Valley Water. Basically, what will happen is if you believe you've suffered damage, we have a claims process in place. Basically, it entails sending me an email. We send you a claim form. And once you send the claim form back to me, we begin our investigation. With regards to your homeowner's insurance, I can't opine on your homeowner's insurance. I haven't seen your homeowner's insurance. I don't know what your homeowner's insurance covers and doesn't cover. But if basically, if Valley Water causes the damage, Valley Water will be responsible for the damage. That's the way these things work. I'll kick it back to you, Chris.
Okay. Hopefully that's a straightforward enough answer. We'll go back to the Q&A for a second. Gary Bailey, is there any evidence of seepage? No evidence of seepage at this point. The dam is intact. George, how do we encourage the county to keep the upper level of Rosden Park open? I will pass along that sentiment to county parks, but once again, you know, you can contact county parks directly with your pleas or concerns regarding what should or should not remain open. They are always receptive. I mean, there are park rangers out there as well. It's the kind of thing where the more they hear, I think the more moved they may be. Let's see. Dicker, would you mind showing the movement related map again, please? Okay, let's see if I can get this to the right location and then share it. Let's see. Sorry, I'm going through these.
Chris, as you pull up that screen share, I think Sarah had a response to the potential location where we can file comments to. Sarah, would you want to share that?
Sure. So FERC is best reached through their online library, which can be accessed at ferconline.ferc.gov. And our project has a specific number. It is 5737. And so anything related to this project will get added to the public record, and the FERC contacts, all of them, the dam safety and the environmental will see your comment. There's a little button that says e-comment, and you, as long as you put in the number 5737, it will be attached to our project.
Okay. So I'm going to share my screen. I believe this is the map that you were interested in. Let's see if this is it. Put it full screen. And if Dicker wants to maybe raise his hand or her hand, we'll know if there was a question associated with this. Let me see. Oops. All right, exited full screen in order to try to see the, oh, there it is. Well, I'm not sure if there is a question associated with this, but I will leave it on for a couple minutes as I read some other questions, and then we'll see if, Albert, if you can monitor the participants and see if a hand gets raised, because I can't see it in this current configuration, that would be best. Duke, does the new design of the dam retrofit still require Cochrane Road to be diverted from the dam? If so, when will that work start? I'm going to kick that one to Yogesh to see if he knows if Cochrane will still be impacted and diverted. Yogesh, do you mind answering that?
Sorry, I was trying to unmute. No, I think, Chris, I need to just double check and get back to you on that one. So sorry, I don't have an answer just yet. Let me see if I can find out soon.
Okay, Yogesh will work on that, and maybe by the end of the meeting he'll have an answer. If not, we can definitely post the answer to our transcript. Charlie B, what is the current view for the dam retrofit timing? We've heard 10 years in the past. I suppose I've never built a dam, but that seems inconceivable. Unfortunately, 10 years is the current outlook between the two projects. The Anderson Dam Tunnel project should be about 3 years, and then the bulk or the remaining portion of the dam reconstruction should be about 7. The real issue is the removal of the embankment. In order to ensure that we have enough dam in place for the rainy season during the periods when that embankment is removed, we can only go down to certain elevations. And we did our analysis. At one point, we thought we could do it in 5 years, but the analysis said there was only about a 5 to 25% chance that we would be successful. And basically, that's a 1 in 2,000% of overtopping, so 0.05%. So if you think about it, anything less than that means, you know, the reoccurrence interval starts to get more frequent, and that was a level of risk we didn't want to endure. So basically, in order to kind of mitigate that risk, the duration for the project has gotten longer. Gary Bailey, will people be allowed to witness the work in progress? Generally speaking, yes. They're basically, most of the fences that were erected will be chain link. If you have binoculars, from your vantage point, you may be able to see it anyway. There will be photos that are always posted to our website, maybe even videos or drone footage. So we will make every attempt to keep the public informed of what's going on out there. Christy, how far from the lake is the soil movement expected? Oh, how far up from the lake is the soil movement expected? I'm glad I kept my screen shared and this slide up because you can see how far up it goes. It basically goes towards Hoot Owl Way for the Hoot Owl Way slide, basically almost to the roadway. If you look at this section, you can kind of see, it gives you a frame of reference. You do see some cars there, some driveways. So that's about as far as the slide is. If we wanted exact numbers, Yogesh, do you have an exact figure in terms of how far up the slide projects?
So to answer that question simply, like in the past, what we have seen is the slope movement at the toe. And let me see if I can point on using the pointer.
I don't think so. This is my screen, so.
It's your screen. Okay, so towards the upper portion of the screen where you have that blue line, we call that the toe of the slide.
Okay.
And at all the way on the bottom portion of the slide, that's called the head, kind of the headscarp of the slide. Yep. And those are the extent limits of the boundary of the landslide. The amount of movement that Chris had mentioned before for the respective landslides were, you know, let's say 6 to 10 for the Hoot Owl. That's at the bottom of the slide, not at the headscarp.
Okay,
and some of the other, and the vertical movement, well, maybe you didn't give these numbers, but in the past, they were 1 to 5 feet vertical. And those are more at the toe or the, you know, top of the screen. And then as you go further up toward the headscarp, the magnitude of the movement decreases. So that's what we have seen in the past for both Hoot Owl and Boat Marina. Boat Marina less so, Hoot Owl a little bit more. So we are monitoring, we have several monitoring stations on both of these landslides, and we're continuing to monitor it. We're seeing some movement at the water line, and the water is about, say, 450. But that type of movement that we're seeing is localized, meaning that these are shallow type movements, which is 1 to 4 feet, or we're also seeing some movement, which are, you know, desiccation cracks. So they're not, it's not propagating, or it's not going up towards the, what you call the headscarp. And that blue line you're seeing is the maximum extent of what we have mapped in March of 2002 and what we are continuing to monitor as recently as last Thursday. And they'll be out there again tomorrow. So we are not seeing large amounts of movements now. At the headscarp location, we are seeing some localized sloughing and desiccation cracks in the order of, you know, a couple of feet at the water line. So I don't know if that answers the question, but it is a little bit more than was asked. But that's just to give you an understanding of the distribution of the movement of the landslide.
Thank you, Yogesh. Next question. I did ask Santa Clara County Parks about Rosden. Rosedin, they told me they did not know, and it was up to you, just an FYI. I will ask County Parks myself tomorrow when I meet with them. As the park is not Valley Water's property, we really have no control over it. The only way they would shut it down, well, I don't want to hazard a guess, but possibly if you're not able to access the park for some reason because you have to go through Valley Water property, maybe that's why they're shutting it down. But I will ask County Parks tomorrow and we will get to the bottom of this. I've stopped sharing my screen so I can see hands that are raised, and there are two. Mr. Mulligan?
Okay, I'm there again. So you acknowledge that the draft EIR has changed in scope from what you originally had based on the initial study. I think under CEQA, you're obligated to publish an addendum or something like that, so we get another shot at the making sure that the scope is really broad in terms of discussing the fire safety impacts, both for this project and in the context of the significant cumulative impact that you'll have with the actual Anderson Dam retrofit, which will bring this whole dewatering period to 11 years. So will there be another addendum to the initial study with another 30-day comment period or whatever it is?
So yes, when the draft EIR is released for the Anderson Dam Seismic Retrofit project somewhere in what I'm guessing is late 21, early 22, there will be a public comment period. I'm not sure if it is 30 days, I believe it is, but you will have the opportunity to provide additional comment. Paula has her hand raised.
Hi, you said earlier, and I missed it, there's a period of time that you said you anticipated the fire risk actually to be greater. Was that during the construction of the tunnel period or the construction of the dam, or did I get that wrong?
It would be during the tunnel period, there will still be water in the reservoir and kind of a muddied surface that will reoccur until the tunnel is complete. So the water level will rise and fall, but will never be drained. During the construction of the reservoir itself, it will be completely dry, at least during the summer portion. So if there were a fire impact, I would assume a greater impact would be during the seismic retrofit project. As Mr. Mulligan just commented, we will be releasing a draft EIR, which will take that into account and will be available for comment. So you will, if you are concerned about fire safety at that point, you will be able to make public comment regarding that onto the EIR if for any reason you feel as though the mitigation measures that are being proposed are insufficient or inadequate. Let's see here. We have Miss Joanne Reif, who has her hand raised.
Joanne, go ahead and unmute yourself.
So I had understood earlier that the site of the dam itself would be moved. Is with this new plan, will it be rebuilt in the same location as it is now?
Yes, the dam is being rebuilt in the same location it is right now. In fact, the clay core, which is the core, the impenetrable surface that the water cannot pass, will remain in place, and we will just basically remove and replace and rebuild the embankment. I'm going to flip back to the Q&A for a little bit before we go back to more raised hands. Carol He, why is this project going to take 10 years? That's a long story. When originally conceived in 2012, this was supposed to be a 3-year project. As I mentioned, we were originally just going to put more material on the downstream face of the dam. When we were doing our geotechnical explorations in 2016, we found additional liquefaction potential. In layman's terms, we found that basically the dam embankment would act like pudding if there was an earthquake and get very soft and mushy and drop about 20 feet. As that was the case, basically we have to remove all of the embankment material and put suitable material so that when an earthquake happens, it doesn't liquefy. So that increased the duration of the project to about 5 years. That was around 2016, 2017. We then added a full spillway replacement, which added just a little bit of time. And then in 2018, when we were dealing with the National Marine Fisheries Service, which is the federal service that does our Endangered Species Act consultation for fish, they said that the impacts from the project must be considered for not just the dam retrofit, but also operation of the dam. The dam was constructed in 1950, prior to the existence of the National Marine Fisheries Service. So they basically said that the facility had never been permitted, and because we were altering it, we needed to get a permit for not just the dam itself, but the operation of the dam. So that's downstream operations as well. That expanded the scope of the project to include additional mitigation elements and project elements. That happened in late 2018. And as a result of that, when we were looking at the impact to basically potential endangered species, steelhead, the determination was made that the reservoir could not be lowered to dead or past dead pool and completely dry for past a certain period of time. The downstream creek, which is critical cold water habitat for the endangered steelhead, needed to remain watered and could not be dewatered for longer than 2.5 years. So basically that, as well as a production analysis based on the amount of soil that could be moved, took the project from 7 years for the soil movement and then to 9 years to minimize the downstream impact. So basically we got to a project that was about 9 or 10 years when all was said and done. That was the way we were kind of going until about 2020, when the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission stepped in and said, a 10-year project starting in 2022 is unacceptable for the risk to the downstream community. And that is why they said, we want to make sure that that water level is as low as possible for as long as possible while you do this construction. Hence the FERC order to drain the reservoir and then construct the low-level outlet tunnel, which allows us to control the reservoir better. The bright side is we will actually start construction in early 2021, which is actually 2 years earlier than the original dam construction in 2022. But because we have bifurcated the project, we have not been able to get the permit for the entire project, and we still have to do additional effort, and it looks a little bit different than it was. So, you know, there's a loss of efficiency when you bifurcate the project, and even though we expect that the embankment reconstruction, the high-level outlet installation, and the spillway reconstruction will be shorter than the original duration, you know, the inefficiency moving from one project to another project and getting another set of permits has caused us to basically still have a 10-year project. We are doing our best to compact that down, minimize the time between projects, as well as the duration of the follow-up project, the phase 2 section. But you know, I don't want to give anyone any misconceptions like we're going to get it done in any shorter period of time. This is what the estimate currently says. We'll make every effort to, you know, basically shrink that down. But unfortunately, that is how we got from 3 years to 10 years. Sorry for the long story. Charlie, what about the effect on our home/property values? You know, I really can't tell you what the effect on your home or property values is. This is a temporary project. So after this project is complete, if anything, you will be in a more secure location. If you do have concerns about that, I might ask that you ask a real estate agent that you are familiar with. Luckily, we do have our real estate department represented on this in this meeting as well. So in case I've missed anything, I'm going to kick to Bill Magleby to see if he has any thoughts.
You know, Chris, I think you covered it pretty much. I think in the after condition, 10 years hence, properties will definitely be safer, but it's very hard to predict values and the impact that the project will have on values.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Alan, hi. When the full capacity of the water is actually coming back, I heard not. Oh, when is the full capacity of the water actually coming back? I heard not until 2030. If so, why so long to build the dam? Sooner will improve, less impact of drawdown. I agree. I think the sooner we got this done, the better. Unfortunately, I think this is what we had the discussion about through my long-winded explanation of how the project got to 10 years. Right now, you know, we start in early 21. We think we are finishing in 2030. We'll try to finish earlier, but no guarantees. Let's pop back to our hand-raised participants. Mr. Mulligan.
Okay, here I am again. So I'm well aware that we're going to get to be able to comment on the draft EIR and the EIR. My issue is the initial study. Will that draft EIR be based on a less than significant impact for the fire impacts, or will it be based on a significant impact, which you don't have disclosed in the initial study? I mean, that initial study, in my opinion, needs to be substantially redone, or with some sort of addendum that allows us to make sure that the draft EIR is studying the fire safety impacts based on a significant impact.
So as I stated, I believe there have been changes in the regulations regarding what impacts need to be considered for fire safety in an EIR. I'm actually going to kick it over to Sarah Piramoon, who may have a more complete response, which hopefully addresses your concerns.
Hi, thanks for the question, Sean. And I believe that this issue needs to be looked at further. And I don't have an answer for you right now, but I do have a meeting scheduled with our internal team to discuss this topic. I can make a guarantee that in whatever form our EIR comes out in, it will have a section on the fire risks. And I know we have a 2013 document that is outdated in some ways, but it will have a section on the fire safety. And without engaging a specialist on fire risks and mitigations, I can't say if it's significant or insignificant, but we are engaging with that person that will help us get to those answers. So more to come. And I do appreciate the question because this is a very relevant topic.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Unfortunately, Sarah thought she was not going to participate in this meeting tonight, and I said that she had to, so I'm glad she's here. We have another hand raised. Ms. Guido?
Hello. Yes, Diana Guido. I'm wondering, is what the Parks Department planning to close wood choppers and the Holiday Marina area along with Rosedden? And then I have another question. The plan to restore the reservoir to its prior for recreational facilities, and also will the tunnel be useful in any way, or are you just going to plug up the tunnel after everything's done? And the Hoover Dam was built in 5 years, so I understand our situations are a little bit different for the water downstream and the steelhead, but for the fire safety, I'd like to see it be completed in less than what it took the Hoover Dam to be built.
I completely agree with you in regards to the Hoover Dam. I'm almost positive if the Hoover Dam needed to either A, be built in California, or B, be built today, it would take them longer than 5 years. It doesn't seem like we've made strides when it comes to construction efficiency, unfortunately. Back to your question regarding, let's see, sorry, I got stuck on the Hoover Dam because that drew my attention. Can someone please repeat the first half of Ms. Guido's question to me? Any of my fellow participants?
She had a question on the tunnel and the use of the tunnel,
yes.
Chris.
Okay, the tunnel will not be useless and it will not be abandoned. That is actually our primary outlet system. Basically, the high-level tunnel is only for emergency draining purposes as directed by the Department of Safety of Dams. The low-level outlet tunnel is actually what we will be discharging through normal operations, so it is not a wasted effort. This is actually an acceleration of the first portion of the project. The first 2 years of the project was originally slated to be the tunnel and diversion system. This is just going to be the tunnel. So we will take advantage of that. This is not wasted effort. Was there one more question that Ms. Guido posed? I thought there might have been an opener. Okay, I will ask Ms. Guido to raise her hand again and we can come back to it.
It's about two other parks.
Oh, the other parks, right. I'm unaware of the methodology County Parks is using to keep parks open or closed. If it is not closed already, I don't, from my point of view, I think County Parks closed all the affected areas that they had anticipated needing to be closed. If in fact there are additional closures necessary, I'm sure that they will notify the public appropriately. I'm going to have parks on the mind when I talk to them tomorrow. So I'm going to ask them all about which parks will be open when and how we can best notify the public. Please bear with us.
Chris, I'd like to interject a comment.
Sure.
So as far as the county is concerned, they can also contact the local representative of District 1, which is Supervisor Mike Wasserman. He would be more than happy to engage your questions and come back to you with answers in reference to the county issues in the Santa Clara County Parks and Rec area. So contact Mike, he'll be happy to help you.
Thank you, Director Brella. We'll go back to the Q&A for a little bit. Peter C., is there a map available that shows the perimeter of the lake at its lowest targeted level? I'm going to kick that over to Bassam, if he's still on the line, to find out if we have a map of the projected dead pool.
Good evening again. I don't have it right now, but we can produce it based on the bathymetry and the survey we have for the reservoir.
Okay, we don't have it, but we'll get it to you. Thank you, Busan. From Wayne Perrier, I've seen several studies where the Central Valley has subsided many feet due to depletion of aquifers over long drawn drainage periods. I am concerned the same thing could happen here. I am very proud of our groundwater unit. They have weathered our groundwater usage quite effectively, and even through our last drought, which was 4 or 5 years when we were pulling from groundwater quite heavily, we came out of the drought at basically de facto full level for our groundwater basin. So we are cognizant of subsidence. Alviso itself subsided 13 feet from all of the different draw that was done prior to the installation of our groundwater recharge reservoirs and facilities, as well as a state water project. So we are well aware of subsidence, and we'll do everything in our power to maintain the groundwater basin appropriately. We are the state, I think we're the sustainable groundwater agency for our area. So we will definitely monitor that and take appropriate action.
And Chris, if this is Aaron, if I could just also add on, we also understand that South County's only form of drinking water is the groundwater, and the Valley Water works very hard to protect and make sure that we maintain the recharge in that particular area. For this particular project, we will also be supplementing the loss of local water with importer water into those groundwater recharge areas of the creek to make sure that we can ensure a healthy basin while these projects are going on. Thank you, Chris, for letting me add that in.
Thanks, Aaron. Let's see. Tamara Austin, but how long will it be drawn down that far? A year? Years? That's actually a tricky question because it's going to be cyclical. During the first 3 years during the tunnel construction, we anticipate that we will be drawn down to dead pool definitely during summer and possibly as early as December or end of this year. However, as inflows come in from precipitation, we expect that the groundwater, or not the groundwater level, I'm sorry, the reservoir level will rise. So, in the maximum perspective, we could be drained at dead pool for 3 years if we got absolutely no inflows. But if we get very heavy rain, something the order of 2017, 2018, it will take us a very long time to draw it down due to the slow drawdown requirements that we have in place to prevent slides. So, we're into May or at least April, possibly May, depending on how much, we could even go into June. Weather has become very unpredictable at these times. So unfortunately, that's the best answer I can give you. Mr. Mulligan has his hand raised.
So when will a couple things. When will a transcript of this call be available as a public records request? And then I guess you know that both the facts and the law the CEQA law regarding fire impacts has expanded considerably. And then also the facts, I guess we'll have to get to you from those 2 Firebright reports, and other things are significantly worse. And obviously you can look at the 3 fires that we've had in the last 60 days. So I'll get you some information on that. I'd like to just make sure that the fire safety impacts are as broad as possible. So again, the questions are, when will this transcript of this call be available as a public records request? And then what are you using as the thresholds for significance for fire impacts? So those are 2 questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mulligan. I'm going to kick that over to Tony Mercado, who's responsible for putting this together. Just in a general comment, I think the transcript, or at least the recording, will probably be available on our website. You don't necessarily need a public records request, but you can definitely do one if you see fit. Tony, would you like to talk about when this transcript may be available, or this recording?
And speaking with Albert, we do plan to have that up very shortly after this meeting, but I also plan to summarize the questions and the answers that have been presented this evening, and also have that handy and posted to our project website.
Thank you. Okay, back to our Q&A. Susan Reif, can you explain the purpose of the tunnel that will skirt along Coyote Creek? Why is a 24-foot diameter tunnel needed, and what impact will it have on Toyon and Live Oak parks? The 24-foot diameter tunnel is actually our outlet tunnel. Our outlet piping will go through that tunnel. It's basically going through the abutment, the right abutment, instead of through the center of the dam. And that's because as an earthquake happens, there is the possibility that we could have what they call a fault offset of about 4 feet. So that 20-foot diameter tunnel is actually to hold the pipes that are going to go through and allow them to move up to 4 feet in any direction without breaking during an earthquake. So that's why we have this large tunnel. It starts at 24, I think it goes down to 19. Ultimately, in this configuration, it daylights at 8, but it's to allow for the movement of the new outlet that will be installed as part of the overall seismic retrofit project. The impact on Toyon and Live Oak, I'm uncertain what those will be. I think currently the thought is that the outlet will be able to discharge into the existing creek, but there may be impacts to those parks. I don't know if Sarah possibly knows what the impacts might be.
Hi. So if I got the question right, it's the impacts to Toyon. The Toyon will be closed starting in October, or as soon as we start construction, potentially as early as October 1st. And then Live Oak Park will remain partially opened throughout the construction of the tunnel and will be closed starting with construction of the larger retrofit project in 2025 or 2024.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah. Trish Caldwell, how can you start a project without the EIR being completed? For this first phase of the project, the FOCP, it's actually being done under federal emergency. So all of our federal authorities have deemed this an emergency action and are providing coverage for permits under that umbrella. At state agencies, it's going through what they call an urgency consultation. So we basically have an exemption for this first phase of the project. The second part will be done with permits as standard. We will have an EIR going out as well. So we are in consultation with all of the regulatory agencies for environment to make sure that we have adequately addressed the impacts that are coming through this first phase of the project, either through avoidance, minimization, or mitigation. Charlie, are you obtaining measurements for all homes along the Anderson Bank, and will those be public in case of the need to be used for claim? We are only obtaining measurements at areas that are potentially impacted by the slide. So I believe there were about 14 homeowners that were contacted regarding pre-drawdown surveys. So that information is going to be, a copy of it's going to be given to each homeowner. So they will have it available. You know, if they're your neighbor, you can always take a look at it and ask to see it. Okay, it's probably also a publicly available document through a PRA if you need to. Okay, let's see. Miriam, is there any plan for protecting the wildlife during this project? Yes, actually. We have started wildlife relocations. Right now, I believe August 17th, when the fires got really bad, we actually had a crew out in Coyote Creek relocating steelhead. And I want to give a shout out to them and just basically say how devoted they were. They were out there when it was 115 degrees. And then they were also out there when the air quality got to about 200. So, you know, they got out there early, did the best they could. I believe they relocated about 77 endangered steelhead. So the plan is to do that on an as necessary basis as the project commences. Additionally, we will be in contact with other agencies if there are other rescues that are necessary. Okay, Joanne has her hand raised.
So where are you dumping all the material from the embankment?
So the thought is that the embankment material will actually be placed inside of the reservoir. Any material that can be reused will be, so it'll be stockpiled, but any material that can't be used will be what we call wasted. So it'll be spread out over the course of the reservoir. Mr. Mulligan has his hand raised.
What is the total anticipated budget for mitigation measures in millions of dollars?
That is largely dependent upon the measures that are agreed upon during our, sorry, I laugh because Sarah just lit up her screen, so I will let her talk right after I'm done. But I think the total budget right now, the total budget is still to be determined. Basically, we have to provide appropriate mitigation for this project, so the budget will be determined by that constraint. Sarah shook her head, so I don't think she has anything to add. But if you do, feel free to do it now.
Well, I would just add that it's an active conversation with the regulatory agencies, and it's ongoing.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Harris Hall, was the reason a temp dam discarded solely a cost? Seems like this would accelerate the work and mitigate fire concerns. We will actually be putting in a coffer dam upstream of the reservoir in order to control water. So there will be water somewhat upstream of the reservoir, but not in the typical place where you would think it would be in our typical reservoir, so we can construct that embankment. So I'm, you know, I don't know how exactly to answer the question, but we will have a cofferdam present to control water, and there will be water further upstream, so that could factor into the fire prevention or fire hazard. Okay, George, could you please explain again why the project will now take 10 years instead of 7? Okay, 7 years was based on constructability. 10 years was based on environmental impact. In order to minimize the potential environmental impact to the species or negative environmental impact, we've had to basically take a slower pace to ensure that there will be water discharges downstream, as well as a minimized impact from the embankment construction. If through our consultation, it proves feasible to have a dewatered reservoir for a longer period, or if our construction production can be increased, we will basically decrease the overall duration of the project. Okay, Dicker, like Rosedden, the old marina is used regularly by walkers, etc. Could you confirm with the county if this is also needs to be closed? I will put that on the list of questions to ask the county. Old marina, will do. Duke, once the retrofit is completed, will the reservoir be filled naturally through surface runoff, or will water also be piped in? So it will basically depend on precipitation. We do have the ability to put imported water into Anderson Reservoir, and as the amount of water that we have dictates, we will use Anderson as a storage facility, obviously since it is the largest in the county at 90,000 acre-feet. So basically you could see the reservoir full of local water, or it could be full of imported water, or it could be full of both. Looks like Mr. Milligan has his hand raised again.
So I think the existing documents show that your project budget is $575 million with around 15% for planning and mitigation. If I do the 15%, it sounds like $75 million. Does that sound like a reasonable range for planning and mitigation?
That is what had been set aside originally. I believe since the project expanded to encompass post-construction operations, that number may change. It really depends, especially with the bifurcation of the project. Basically, we're now, instead of having one project globally with one set of impacts, we've got the impacts from the project that are happening right away, the impacts from the project that will happen later when construction starts, and then the impacts of the overall operation. So based on that, the budget may change. We'll have to continue our discussions with the regulatory agencies to know. We will update that on a yearly basis in our capital improvement program to reflect that. But yeah, 15%, 10 to 15% is not an unreasonable sum to plan on using or utilizing during the planning process for mitigation. Back to the Q&A. Alan, how long does it take for water to get to full capacity after completion of the dam? That's really all going to depend on precipitation. In 2017, we had about, I want to say, upwards of 12,000 acre-feet, or excuse me, 12,000 CFS, cubic feet per second, coming into the dam as a result of the atmospheric rivers. You know, I'm going to kick it to Aaron to say how fast he's seen it fill. But Aaron, what do you think?
Right. So Chris is absolutely correct. It does depend a lot on the hydrology. But he also mentioned before that Anderson is key to our system, and that we can actually, it's piped into our raw water distribution system, so we can bring imported water in there. So the things that we'll need to do is we'll work with Chris to understand what we think the hydrology is, what the current cost or availability of imported water or imported water sources are, and make sure that we can kind of use the storage of the dam in the best value for us moving forward. So it really does, you know, I mean, it like Chris said, you know, in 2017, you know, you could fill the reservoir in 10 days or something like that, but in a drought, we actually lose more water in evaporation. So we'll have to just see how the hydrology goes. But definitely, you know, now that we have this additional storage, and now that we have the ability to understand and move imported water in, we'll definitely put that storage to use as fast as we can. But it basically depends on the hydrology and the needs that we see within the county and outside the county.
Thanks, Aaron. From Macy, do we have any benefits on the streamlined federal permit process, or is it due to California, Santa Clara County, Morgan Hill that permits are expected to take so long? There were multiple O's, which is why I said it that way. That was not for emphasis. You know, I wish I could say that the federal permitting process, you know, for the FOCP, the streamlined permitting has helped. We are getting out to construction basically 2 full years earlier. The fact that we still have the global project to permit, it is not just that our local entity or our state entity takes a long time to grant permits. Basically, permits are cumbersome at every level. That's an opinion for me, but looking at what's happened and the different regulations that have been put in place, it does take a very long time to get permits at every level. So there is not one bad apple that we can point to say they're the permit that we're not getting. It's up and down across the board. We've got some hand raised. Ms. Guido.
I'm curious as to whether we can have some other improvements during this project besides the dam being safer at a 9.0 earthquake and our ability to control the water. Can we also make other improvements to, let's say, the launch ramps and bathroom facility, hiking trails, and parking? All that is going to be improved. Is there an increase in more than the 90,000 acre feet? And could we also maybe do some hydroelectric power?
Those are all things that were looked at during the planning process. In terms of recreational activities, we are in discussions with the county as to what upgrades may be able to be achieved during the project. We have looked at a boat ramp, a lower level boat ramp, kind of for when the water level is lower, additional parking, most definitely. The hydro facility itself is actually not within the scope of this project. FERC has jurisdiction over the dam reconstruction, but right now they've said your #1 priority is to reconstruct the dam. Nothing else gets done besides that from their perspective. So the hydro facility, we're not going to upgrade during this project. We, you know, like I said, we are having ongoing discussions. If anything comes up with the county that seems like they would like to partner with us, you know, we will take advantage of that for more trails. I know the trail system will be somewhat revamped as part of the project because obviously some will be closed, some will be open. So we will take the opportunity to do as much work ancillary to this project as we can. Mr. Mulligan?
What do you have any idea what the total budget for the 2 projects together will be then? So it's 575 million plus how much? Any rough idea?
That's a tough question right now because the total project cost was 576 million. Basically, since we've broken off the tunnel, we expect that will subtract from the 576, but all of the additional mitigation that's required just because it's tunnel construction has to be factored in. Right now, I think we're projecting that the tunnel costs somewhere in the order of 160 to 180 million. You know, all of the ancillary projects with the FOCP, we're still getting budget numbers for. So I would expect that we'll have a better answer to that question once we update the CIP next year. Mr. Wood has a question, or Ms. Wood, I'm not sure.
Chris, Chris?
What was that, Albert?
Oh, sorry. I was going to mention that I didn't see an audio device at first, but now I see it pop up. So, Mr. or Mrs. Wood, please go ahead.
Okay, we'll continue to try to work that out, but in the meantime, we'll go back to our Q&A. T. Fowler, if Valley Water is planning mitigation to homeowners for damages, does this mitigation involve assisting homeowner hardship should they be unable to obtain fire insurance due directly to the drawdown for fire safety? That's a very interesting question. I'm unable to answer the fire safety question when it comes to risk management. Maybe David Cahan could chime in on that.
All I can say is that we will look at each claim individually and evaluate each claim as it comes in.
Thank you, David. Dicker, as the water draws down, a lot of trash is becoming visible. Is there any plan to clean up the bottom of the lake while drained? Yes, as part of our construction activities, we will be removing foreign debris from the bottom of the lake. We do expect to find things out there. Last time when we drained in 1987, we did. Some weird stuff tends to be found in the lake. So yes, we'll be removing that. Perry House. Let's see, 10 years seems absurd. To impact homeowners for so long is ridiculous. Will compensation be offered to the loss of home values for those of us retiring in the next 10 years. So I think we answered the question as to home values. Bill and I both agree that it's uncertain what the home value, how it will be impacted within the scope of the project versus post-project. Consult with a real estate agent. In terms of value that may be impacted, I'm once again going to kick it to David Cahan so he can address that.
Again, we look at each claim as they come in, and if there's a home value issue, we will look at it. Home values tend to be very speculative. Values go up and down. As Chris said, he's right. Consult with your real estate agent as to your appropriate actions.
Okay, thank you, David. Charlie, so no part of Rosden will be used as a resource or materials to build the dam itself? I do not believe so. The main material source for the reservoir will be from the existing borough site that was used the first time around. Yogesh, do you want to chime in at all?
I think you're correct, Chris. No import will be needed.
Okay. Harris Hall, a bit off on the geotech vein. Will fish start dying off soon? In earlier meetings, you mentioned there will be efforts to save native fish. Who is doing this and when? And who/when is removing dead fish after a large die-off occurs? We actually just received an inquiry from a third-party contractor on the removal of fish, so we will be coordinating that activity. So basically, at this time, I'm unsure. I cannot give you one entity that will be removing the dead fish, but it does appear as though there may be options. In terms of relocating non-dead, live native fish, we've already started that effort in August, and we will be, I believe, doing a second round somewhere in the October vein, and then annually thereafter if necessary. Albert, have we worked out Mr. and Mrs. Wood's audio issues yet?
We can try again. Chris, I'm going to turn your microphone on again. Please unmute yourself and attempt to speak.
Hello, Albert.
Go ahead.
Yes, I'm here now. Thank you. So my question is very simple. If we have a very dry weather going forward through 2025, and you have to buy a lot of water from the San Luis Federal Reservoir System, how much do you expect our water rates to increase because of that?
So that is a question that is multifaceted. I don't think we have our water supply representatives on the phone. Aaron may be able to chime in, but water is a commodity, and it's almost like the stock market where based on demand, the prices do fluctuate. In 2013 through 2017, right before the drought ended, we did see fluctuations in the price of water up to, I believe, 5 times what it was during 2013. What is interesting is that during a drought, it's kind of across the board, there's no water. So even during a drought, if Anderson was fully operational, we wouldn't have the water to put in there based on the allocations that we get from both the state and federal contracts, excuse me. So I'll let Aaron add to that, but it's really tough to tell. It'll depend on the volume of water we need and the water market as it exists when it happens.
Yeah, to go along with what Chris was saying, you know, as the dam operator and trying to manage the wholesale water for the county, we definitely can't wait for the reservoir to be fixed. You know, we've been living with the DSOD restriction at 58 and then down even lower. So we do understand. And what Chris was talking about is, yes, during a drought, we don't actually get any inflow, but we do use the storage that's available to help offset some of those needs. So one of the things that we've been looking at is understanding what the impact is over the next 10 plus years without having that water. The good news is that the groundwater is looking well. And then one of the other things you talked about was imported water, and that's correct. But kind of like the stock market, as Chris has kind of hinted, we also have our feelers out there to understand what we could do to make sure that we have adequate water so that we don't have to pay really high prices on the spot market. Instead, we have basically these puts out. We have these puts out here that would let us, you know, buy this water at a pre-negotiated price moving forward. The other thing is that our importer water unit also has feelers out on many other things. Not only that, we have groundwater banking and other types of importer water supplies that we'll be pulling on at this time. But so we don't expect a huge increase in rates, you know, even if we do get we'll call it a mild drought or other types of things. In a severe drought, of course, things are just going to get expensive, and that's the kind of the way it is. But the good news is, and what we want to look forward to is, once we fix this reservoir and we get these things moving, then we will have the water and we will be able to survive even further droughts or further types of atmospheric changes as we move forward.
Thank you, Aaron. Mr. Mulligan has his hand raised.
Yeah, if we got the fire marshal, based on the 3 fires that we had, to ask FERC to I don't mind the drawdown starting October 1st, but I'd like to at least get past the last 2 months of this particular fire season, if that's all possible with your work schedule and their permission. If the fire marshal wrote that kind of letter, would the Valley Waters Board be willing to take the position that we should, at least ask for a delay based on the fires? Those things were not foreseen when the order was given, and they are, material. I just at least like to get through this fire season with some water in the lake.
As I'm just an employee, I can't speak for our board, but maybe Director Varela might want to chime in on his views on that.
Sure. As we are all aware, our water supply currently is absolutely stellar. Although the impacts at Anderson, which is local, you have a concern, but I can assure you all our 10 dams and reservoirs, with the exception of Anderson, and our groundwater supply is, are we at 90% pretty much? Is that the number I can reference? Somebody that knows that for a fact. So from a firefighting perspective, and I had conversations with CAL FIRE last week with their executive team here in Morgan Hill and also in San Jose during the fires that we had, and I asked them point blank, are there concerns that you have in any reference to the current fires and any future fires that we have throughout the county and throughout the area? And they assured me they had no water concerns whatsoever this year. So just be aware that we are on top of that. We're having these discussions. We understand the concerns, but we have our EOC committee, the meetings that we have at the district that also works along with the county and with the city of Morgan Hill and Gilroy and the residents of San Martin. So we are engaged in all these things and concerns that you are raising. Don't think that we are not. I live in Morgan Hill, okay? Our issue at the water district is public safety. Above and beyond, we are a flood control water district. We want you to be safe. We want to prevent fires, and we want to prevent flooding above everything else, and also supply you with fresh, clean water. So there it is.
Thank you, Director Varela. Question from Perry House. Where will the Coffer Dam be located, and how full will the water level be in the HLE area, so the Holiday Lake Estates area? Yogesh, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, that's a little difficult to answer at this point because we split the project up in 2 different pieces. One is the initial stage of the tunnel. So, but the original design was just to have a coffer dam, but that was only 465. The top of the elevation was 465 feet. So it would be lower than the dead pool level of what we're going to have at 488. So it was 465, and it was about a couple of thousand feet upstream from the existing dam location.
Okay, thank you, Yogesh. Charlie, will the lake definitely be reopened to boating by the end of this? From Valley Water's perspective, absolutely. There's no sense in getting a full reservoir if we can't have boating, but obviously we have to work with the county on that. So that is the intent at this time, and I've heard nothing about a restriction on boating after completion of the project. Chris Wood, add on to my question about water rates. Since you tend to send this expression to residential users almost every year, you were so successful in using less water. We did not make enough revenue to support our system, so we are raising your rates. So I ask you again to fess up. What do you estimate our rates, or what do you estimate our rates to go up, and will agricultural rates also go up? Please answer the question and don't duck it. Water rates are actually a multifaceted issue. There are several things that go into water rates besides just water usage. Infrastructure repair is actually a big driver in water rates. And currently, a lot of the district's infrastructure is 70+ years old, some as old as 90. So we have underground pipelines, we've got dams and reservoirs that need to be rehabilitated. So even in times when water is flowing full, we do need to rehabilitate those facilities, so there will be an increase in water rates. We work with your local water retailer to try to minimize those impacts, smooth out those curves. We are also trying to procure additional supplies. As droughts keep coming due to climate change, we're trying to make sure that the valley is in the best position possible to have water. In order to get those new supplies, that also takes additional revenue, which is why basically it's not just how much water is used that drives rates. So I'm not trying to duck the question at all, I promise you. Water rates are a very intricate process when we are trying to set those. Our board of directors actually suppressed the rate artificially for the first 6 months of this year because they knew that COVID was impacting families and retailers, and basically we didn't want to press that hardship on you. And actually back in, I want to say, 2011 through 2013, I believe we had a 0% water rate increase. But the fact is that's unsustainable long-term. Population growth does come with additional water usage, but then it does come with additional demand as well. So in order to make sure that the engine that is Silicon Valley keeps on humming, we do need to have appropriate water rates. Not to take a shot at our brethren to the north, but we are still cheaper than SFPUC. And they went through a similar issue where they held rates artificially low for a long period of time and then ended up drastically increasing their rates in order to fund a $4 billion rehabilitation program. We saw that happen, and we are trying to do a much more measured approach so that it can be planned for and you don't see a triple or quadruple in your water rates on any given year. And I believe I don't see any more hands raised, and I don't see any more questions in the Q&A. So I'm going to turn it back over to Melanie.
Thank you, Chris. Great job. Appreciate that. And before I let Director Varela make some closing remarks, I just wanted to thank everyone and recognize that we had 68 people in attendance. I very much appreciate the attendance and all of the great questions you asked. And for those that we didn't answer this evening, we will be getting back to you soon. And with that, I will turn it over to Director Varela for some closing comments.
Okay, there, I'm unmuted. Thank you, Melanie. Thank you, everybody, for participating tonight. I want to thank our Valley Water team for the expert information that you're supplying tonight. It's not an easy thing to do. Sometimes it's the questions that are asked, we have to come up with an answer as best we possibly can. And I think our team is excellent. And those questions that were not asked or not answered tonight, we will get back to you with an answer. We will follow up with you. This meeting was recorded and will be posted to our YouTube channel in the coming days, should you wish to go back and review anything you may have missed. If you have any further questions about the project in the coming days, please contact our neighborhood liaison, Tony Mercado, or visit Valley Water webpage and use our Access Valley Water program. And with that, I want to say thank you and good night, and stay safe.